about what is machine learning and what we actually do in machine learning. So what I think is now uh, you can learn the different models of machine learning. Okay. So today we are going to start with regression. So can someone just revise what is regression actually and why do we use regression? I guess we have done this on day 4. Okay, so I just want one person to revise it. Either you can text here, either you can unmute your mic or else you can just type it on the group.
I think we use regression as a way to measure the correlation between one variable and the other.
Yes, but that's on only numerical values. Remember I told you about it?
And I don't kind of because I think I missed the first few lectures.
Okay, okay. Just a minute, guys. Just give me a minute. Okay, so I'll just revise what is actually regression. So regression is nothing but a statistical way to establish relationship between a dependent and independent variable. So that's bookish stuff. We are not interested in it. So we will see the practical implementation. Okay, so how many of you know about BMI, that is body mass index? Can someone just tell me the formula of body mass index? Is it possible? Just Google it. Even if it's fine if you don't know about body mass index, just Google it and just tell me the formula. We are actually interested in the formula or the perimeter, anything.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's the square of your height divided by your weight.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect, Akash. Okay, so that's what is a formula for BMI. So here you need to understand what's the dependent variable and what's the independent variable. Okay, so the thing is, the as you see in this particular example, age is equal to 5 plus height into 10 plus weight. Okay, so linear regression is what we do in linear regression, or you say regression is we predict the output of one variable through another variable. As I said in BMI, the formula was height square divided by weight. So what are you guys predicting? You guys are predicting the BMI of a person through which values? Through weight and height. Okay. So you are predicting this, that is BMI, through weight and height. So can you just tell me which is the independent variable and which is the dependent one? You are predicting y on the basis of x. Okay, just assume that this particular y which you are predicting is the BMI and the x through which, because of which you are predicting y is your weight and height, x1 and x2. Okay, so can you just tell me which is the dependent variable and which is the independent variable? Dependent, as the word says, it's dependent on someone. Okay.
So I think the age is the dependent one.
Age is not. Are you trying to say weight? Because I considered the BMI example, okay, which is the BMI is equal to height square divided by weight. Okay, so if you want to say weight, then yes, that's an independent variable. Okay, because we are not predicting that variable. Just keep one thing in mind: the thing which you are predicting, that's dependent. Why it is dependent? Because through another values you are predicting that you are taking help from other values and then you are predicting its value. It's taking help from some other variable, right? So that's why it is dependent on that variable, and the other variable from whom you are taking help and predicting the value, that's independent, because its value is already known to you. It doesn't need to be predicted, right? So now let me just tell you about two things which is dependent and independent. Dependent, as the word says, that particular variable is dependent on someone. Independent, I am not dependent on anyone. I already know my value. And what do you do from this dependent and independent variable? you predict the values of dependent variable based on the independent variable. So the best example is BMI. You are predicting the BMI value, which is a dependent variable, using height and weight. Those are independent variables because you already know your height, you already know your weight. So that's your independent variable. Okay. So what is linear regression? Okay. So in linear means, just keep one thing in mind, linear means two variables. Okay, linear means you are dealing with only two variables. Okay, you are not going beyond that. So you only have two variables, either y or either x. Y is dependent variable, and x is independent variable. Okay, so a regression where you have only two variables, that is known as linear regression. Linear, you are only dealing with two values. Okay, so that's why it is called linear. Okay, so did you guys understand till now? Independent variable, dependent variable, and linear regression. And why do we call it linear regression? Understood? All three concepts?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so moving on to residuals. Okay. Okay, and residuals and best fit line. Okay, so let me just tell you, I will just share the whiteboard. Is my whiteboard visible?
No, I can't see it.
Okay, just a minute, it's loading. Now I guess it's visible, right?
No, I still can't see it.
Uh, okay. Now is it visible?
Yeah, now it is visible.
Great. Okay, then works. Now is it visible? No.
No, now it's not.
Now it should be
Now it
visible.
is visible.
Okay then. Okay then. So now let's consider. Okay. You are having a graph. Okay. This is one particular graph. Okay. And now we are having some data points over here. Okay, these are some data points which we have plotted. Okay, so there is a normal relation y equals mx plus c. I don't know what's the problem, just give me a minute. I guess now it is visible, there shouldn't be any problem with this.
Yeah, it is visible.
Great, thank god. So okay, so let's just consider one graph. Okay, and these are some points which I am plotting. Okay, and the relation given is y equals mx plus c, a very simple equation. So can anybody tell me what is this equation actually? What does it represent?
It
Anyone?
represents a straight line.
Perfect, absolutely right. Okay, So let's draw a straight line over here. Okay. So what do you mean by the best fit line? Okay. And what is residuals? Okay. So now tell me, residuals is actually the distance of this best fit line and this particular point. Okay. Residuals is the error. Okay. So what are these points? These points are actually the points which we are plotting from this equation. Okay. We have a certain data sets. We have the values of x and y, and accordingly we are plotting these lines. We are plotting these particular points. And what is the best fit line? A best fit line is a line which passes exactly near to these points. Okay. Near to these points means the distance between the point and this particular line is minimal. Okay, you can say less than equal to minimal. The distance, these distances are minimal. We call it as a best fit line. Okay, and actually this best fit line helps you in determining your output. Okay, so for example, this is the last point which has been given to us. Okay, and we have to find out the further point. So what we'll do is we will take this best fit line ahead, and with the help of this best fit line we can plot, or we can get the values of x and y. Okay, so that's called as prediction. That's what we do using machine learning algorithms, and our main aim is to get these particular output values. Okay, so this best fit line, okay, and you can see these distances. Okay, these distances. Okay, so what we say is this is the actual value. Okay, which we get through this equation. This is the actual value. Okay, and this is the observed value. Okay, the best fit line. How do we draw the best fit line? Using the output values. And what here, what do we need as the output? We need the dependent variable. The dependent variable is y over here. Okay, I'll just write dependent I, and what is x? X is the independent variable. Okay, and this is what we need as the output using independent variable, because that's what linear regression is, right? You are using the independent variable to get the values of the dependent variable. Okay, so this is what you have actually got through the equation, and this is what you actually have. Okay, and this is the predicted value which you have predicted based on the model. Okay, and it is already given to you. Okay, so if you find out the error, okay, observed value minus actual value, okay, so that is known as a residual. Okay, just understand. So simply, if somebody asks you that what is a residual, just say that it is actual value minus observed value, which is the error. That is known as a residual. Okay, so is it clear? Residual as well as best fit line. What's the best fit line? From the points which are plotted on the graph is minimal. That is known as the best fit line. You can relate it with the name best fit. Okay, best fit means it's the best and the errors. Okay, and the residuals which are there, those are minimal. Okay, the residuals means that these distances. Okay, these distances should be minimal. The error should be very minimal. The best fit line should approximately, or it should pass through minimum distances from these particular points. Okay, so these are residuals and this is best fit line. Okay, I'll just write BFL and residual. So are these two statements clear? Best fit line and
Yes.
residual. Okay, then perfect. So now moving on. Okay, so I guess this particular slide is clear. I'll just revise once again. So what is regression? Regression is something through which you calculate the values of the dependent variable from the independent variable. Okay, and what is the best example? The example is given, age is equal to height into 10 plus weight. So in this particular example, your age depends on your height and your weight. That's why age can be called as a dependent variable. And you calculate your what I say, the values of the dependent variable, your age, using the independent variables, which are height and weight. Why are they independent? Because the value are already known to us. We don't need to calculate it using any other things, right? So that's what it is. It is known as regression. And what's linear regression? Linear regression is something in which two variables are involved. Just two variables. That is known as linear regression. Okay, what are residuals? Residuals is the distance from the best fit line, or else you can say that it is the difference of the observed value minus, sorry, the actual value minus observed value. Okay, and what is the best fit line? A best fit line is the line which has the minimum distance from all the points, which has the minimal distance. So here it is given that it is one of the smallest sum of squared residuals. Okay, so the smallest sum means minimal. Can you imagine it? Residual means a point and the distance from the line. So what this particular statement is saying, that the distance is minimal. So in very lame and clear language, what we can say that the best fit line is a line whose distances from the actual points are minimal. Okay, so I guess this is understood. Okay, so now we'll move on to what is regression analysis. Okay, so regression analysis means simply regression. So what are you guys doing in regression? You are finding out the relationship between the dependent and the independent variables. Okay, so what you are finding is you're actually finding the values of dependent and dependent variable using independent variables. But for that, you need to find a relation between them, right? So during the analysis, what you do is you find the relation between them. Okay. So depending on the relation, what kind of relation it is, you get the values of the dependent variable. For example, as I mentioned, y equals mx plus c. Okay. So y equals mx plus c. In this particular case, this is the independent variable id, this is the dependent variable, and what you are doing is you are finding the value, or you can say the relation between the dependent variable and the independent variable, which is y equals mx plus c. Okay, and what does it do? What types of questions this answers? It's predicting the values, right? Just a minute, guys. Okay, guys, very sorry for the interruption. So, what I was saying is, what kind of answers, what kind of questions these guys are, this particular thing answers. Okay, so it answers like what are the drivers for significant impact on sales. So, indirectly, instead of considering these examples, what simply I can say that it's just answering your questions of what is the value of dependent variable based on your independent variable. So if someone asks you like, what do we do with linear regression? So just say that we are finding out the value of dependent variable using one or more independent variables. So that's what we are doing in regression analysis. That's our main goal. In simple words, in normal words. Okay. So this is the one of the most important parts. Okay, which you need to consider in regression. These terminologies should be clear to you. If these terminologies are not clear to you, okay, So you won't be able to do the regression, linear regression models. Okay. So are you guys ready? So everything else is cleared. Do you guys have any doubts?
Yes, yes.
Okay then. So if you don't have any doubts, then we can move. Go ahead.
We are
Oh
doing like if we have a lot of points in our data and we are just making a equation, right? That is mapped to that data set so that we
yes.
can input new x and y values to get new y values, right?
Yes, exactly. You are just putting X values and like you're indirectly putting all the independent variable values, okay, which values are already mentioned, okay. So indirectly you are establishing a relation. Perfectly right. You are establishing a relation, and once you have the relation, then it's simple. You just need to put the X value, you will get the Y value, right? Pretty simple. Like that's what you
Yeah,
did in
thank
linear
you.
equations, right? Okay then. Perfect. So what are outliers? The first one is what are outliers? Okay. So outliers, can you relate it? The word itself says outliers means something which is out of your range. Okay. So does anyone remember I said that it's important to clean the data? Right, I just said in day 3 I guess ki it is important to clean the data because there may be chances that there will be some values which will be out of your range, okay, and which you don't need. Okay, for example, let me consider this example. Okay, so this is the whole graph. What I'll do is I'll just erase this, else I'll just take a new whiteboard. Okay, so let us consider that this is the line. Okay, these are some points which we have on this particular line. This is our best fit line. Okay, and the ranges that and the range in which we have points is this. Okay, our points won't go beyond this particular point, but let us assume that there is a point which is far beyond. Okay, okay, so let us assume that this range is 10. Okay, our values are from the range. Okay, on the y-axis the range is 10, and sorry, on the y-axis the range is 3, on the x-axis the range is 10. Okay, so this is our area where we have all the points, but let us assume that there is a point somewhere over here and the value is infinity. Let us consider this point. The value is infinity. Here also the value is infinity, and we have 1 point. We have 2 points at infinity minus 1, or maybe 99999, which is a very big number. So, do you guys really think we need those kind of values in our model? It's not really required, right? Because what we need to do is, for example, my boss has given me the task ki, okay Tushar, this is your model. Okay, and you have to this is the x is the independent variable, y is the dependent variable. Now give me the value at y equals 50. Okay, or maybe y equals 1000. That's fine, but do you think, do I need such values which are at infinity? I don't need it, right? Because the answer is undetermined. We cannot find the answer. It's going to be a very big number. So why do you want to involve that particular number in your model while training your model? There is no need for that. Okay. So these outliers which are there, these particular points, they need to be removed out of your data set because they are of no use. You have a predefined range, or maybe the numbers can go till thousands, 10,000s, maybe more than that, but not to an infinite level. Okay, so if you have a very big number and your range is very small, okay, so what you need to do is you need to discard that particular point. Okay, those points, these points are known as outliers. As the name suggests, outliers, they lie outside your range. Okay, so you just need to remove that points. That's pretty simple. There may be some bookish definitions for outliers that they are certain points which are this, but the most perfect definition of outlier point is an outlier is a point that is beyond your range, nothing else, right? Okay. So is this clear? Is outliers clear?
Yes.
Okay, okay then. So now let's move on to multi-collinearity. Okay. So has anyone heard of the term multi-collinearity or a collinear? What do you mean by collinear points? Can anybody tell
Linear
me?
points are points that are in the
Line in
same
the same
line.
line.
Same line, exactly. Same line. If some point is in the same line, can you say that those points are interrelated to each other? Can we say that?
Yeah, we can draw a line through them.
Exactly. So you can say that, right? That those points are interrelated with each other.
They lie on the same line.
Exactly, right. So let us assume that this particular point, okay, its value is 3 and its this value is 5. So if you are drawing a diagram or if you are representing it in the form of Venn diagram, I guess everybody knows what's a Venn diagram, right? Hello? Everybody knows what's a Venn
Yeah.
diagram? Yes, then.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just draw a Venn diagram for these particular points. Okay, so we are drawing a graph. Okay, we are drawing a line. This particular point, okay, and this particular point. We are saying that these 2 points are on the same line. These are collinear. That's why they are interrelated with each other. And let's call it as A. Let's call it as B. So what can I say that? A and B, this is A, this is B, they are related to each other. That's why in Venn diagram there is a common shaded region, right? Am I right? Can I say this?
Yes.
Perfectly fine. Okay, then now assuming multicollinearity. As you can, multi means many, more than one. Okay, so simply, as I said in linear, okay, sometimes in regression there are dependent and independent variables. Okay, so what happens in multicollinearity, I'll write it at MCL. What happens in multicollinearity, there are more than one dependent variables. Okay, there are more than one dependent variables. For example, y1 plus y2 is equal to x1 x plus x1. Okay, these two are independent variables and these two are dependent variables. Okay, so what I said in regression, you find the value of dependent variable based on independent variables, right? That's what I said. So this is what happens in regression. You have one independent variable, you have one dependent variable, and you find out the values of the dependent using the independent. But what happens in multicollinearity? Your dependent variables are dependent on each other. Can you imagine? Though the values which you need to find, okay, those are only dependent on each other. Okay, that means what you can say is these x1 and x2, they are only related to each other. Okay, for example, weight or not weight, okay, BMI equals weight, sorry, not weight, it was height square by weight. So what am I saying is these two independent variables are interdependent on each other. Okay, it should have been interdependent, right? They shouldn't depend on each other, but they are actually depending on each other. That means you can say that height and weight both are independent, both are not independent, they are actually dependent. Okay, so that creates an issue that shouldn't be there. Okay, your independent variable should be independent of all the factor, irrespective. Even if I have 10 independent variables, they should be independent of each other. But in multicollinearity, that's not the case. Your independent variables are dependent on each other. There we can say that height is dependent to weight. That's not practically possible, but we are just assuming. But in multicollinearity, this thing happens, right? Okay, so this is what known as multicollinearity. In simple and lame language, if somebody asks you like what is multicollinearity in linear regression, just say one line. The independent variables are dependent on each other. In this case, we call it as multicollinearity. Can you imagine? Multicollinearity means multiple dependencies. Multiple things are dependent on each other. Okay, and this what we can say is in a linear regression model, we are having certain assumptions. Okay, so one assumption is no outlier should be present. That's absolutely right because you don't need such values, and there shouldn't be multicollinearity as well. Absence of multicollinearity. That means independent variables should be independent. They shouldn't be dependent on each other. Weight should be weight, height is height. You cannot relate between height and weight. In simple lame language, what is multicollinearity? Your independent variables are dependent on each other. That's multicollinearity. And we don't need multicollinearity in linear regression because your dependent variables are only can only be found out using independent variables. Your independent variables are not connected. They are not dependent on anything. Okay. That in simple and lame language, this is how I can define multicollinearity. So is it understood?
Yeah, so if you do a linear analysis, we will first have to check, right, that our variables are actually independent of each other.
Exactly. So that creates an issue, right? If your model is not giving you the correct output, okay, so this can be the possible reason. Like your independent variables may be dependent on each other. That's why your model is not working well. Okay. This, as I said, we are having certain assumptions in linear regression. Okay, if you're having a data set of linear regression, there are some points which you need to assume कि ये सब तो है ही, ये assumptions है and these are true, and I can use this particular model and I can work on it. So पहले you have to assume some things in mind. This is one of them, that it doesn't have multicollinearity. That means your independent variables are not dependent on each other. And the second thing is it doesn't have outliers. Outliers means out of range values, which are not at all necessary for your model. Your model range is 15 or maybe 1000, and you are having a value which is 9 crores, maybe 9 billions, 9 trillions. You don't need that particular value, right? So just discard it. Why are you keeping that particular value if you don't actually need it, right? So this much is understood.
Yeah, understood.
Okay then, so where's our presentation? Okay, so now just somebody define me. I just want someone to give me a gist of what all I have done in the past in one line. That's all.
Can you repeat it? What do you ask?
I just asked that just define two things. Just define me what is real linear regression, what are outliers, what is multicollinearity. Just these 3 points. That's all. What do you understand by these?
Well, linear regression is when we try to find a best fit line on a data set that can predict the value of y based on the value of x, and outliers would be values that are outside of the range of the data set, practical range that we are looking at.
Okay.
Multicollinearity would be when your input variables, I guess x and x1 and x2, are not technically independent of each other, but they are somehow dependent on each other.
Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. Very good, very good. I think that's perfect. Okay. So now I'll tell you something about heteroskedasticity. Okay. And very sorry for my language. Okay. These words are a bit difficult. Okay, but it's very easy. Okay. So do you guys remember what is residuals? I just taught you, I think, around 10 minutes back. Okay, can somebody revise me what is residual? Okay, it's something
Yeah, it's
related.
the distance. It's the distance between the best fit line and the data point that we have to
Exactly.
minimize.
Exactly. Perfectly right. Okay. So what happens in heteroscedasticity is, okay, you are plotting these residuals. You take all the residual values with you. Okay. You plot it. Okay. You find the variance. Okay. For a particular range of values. You take the residual values. Okay. Take all the residual values with you. Calculate it and draw a particular graph, and now take the variance. Okay, now take the variance of all the values. What you can see is, for a defined range, as I said, there will be a specific range. What you will see is those values will be unequal. Okay, those values will be very unequal, and that's not good for your model. What you can say that मतलब तुम लोग values ले रहे हो, you are taking that those particular values, and those are very unequal. Okay, they are not constant. They are not constant. That means the points are very different, right? What we can conclude from this, just a minute, I'll take it to the maximum size. Okay, so from this what you can say that, okay, these are my line, this is my best fit line, these are the points. Okay, these are the points. What you can say that your graph, okay, or the data set which you have, it's scattered. Okay, if it has heteroscedasticity, that means it is scattered. What do you mean by scattered? Can somebody tell me? It's a very normal thing, I guess. I think everybody must have heard it. What is the meaning of scattered? Okay,
Thrown together randomly.
random distribution. Yes, you can say that random. Indirectly, you can say that the data points are far away. Okay, this is not the case. Actually, this is combined. Okay, what is scattered? Scattered means this is your best fit line. The points are very far away. Okay, and what I said, what is the best fit line? Best fit line is a line where the distance is minimal. But if your graph is scattered, obviously the distance is not going to be minimal, right? If your graph is scattered, the data points are far away from each other. Obviously, you won't get a best fit line. Just consider this case. Okay, these are points. Okay, they are very far away from each other. Okay, and if you are assuming to draw a best fit line, okay, I consider this is my best fit line. Can you see the distances are very large, and as compared to this, the distances are very small. That means this particular graph is more scattered, right? And if the graph is very scattered, you won't be able to get a good prediction. Your results won't be good, right? So that's why one of the assumptions is your what do you say, your graph, or what you say, your model, it shouldn't have heteroscedasticity. It's a big word, okay? Just break it and say it. It shouldn't have heteroscedasticity. Okay, your model shouldn't have heteros, because if your model is heteroscedastic, then obviously your model is, or your data set is scattered, means the distances are very large. And if the distances are very large, then obviously you won't get a good efficiency. Your model won't be good. You won't be able to draw best fit line. Even if you draw it, it wouldn't be that good. It won't give you the predicted values as correct values, or maybe you can say approximate values. Okay, so your whole model is just waste if it is heteroscedastic. Okay, so only one thing you need to remember, okay, that your model shouldn't be heteroscedastic. It's a normal decision. If what somebody asks you what do you do in heteroscedasticity, just tell that we take the residual, we find the variance, and we can see that the variance for each point is unequal. It is unequal. Okay, so that means my graph is scattered, and I cannot get a good model or a good result out of it. That's all. That's a simple definition of heteroscedastic. Is it
Can you
understood?
repeat it once more, the definition?
Definition. Yes. What is heteroscedasticity? What I do is I take the residuals, okay, I calculate the variance, and the variance is unequal for a certain set of values. The variance of the residuals is unequal for a certain set of values. That means my data set, or the problem statement in for which the data is given, it is scattered. The data points are far away from each other. This is the definition. Is it understood?
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Great. So now, talking about underfitting and overfitting, guys, remember this is one of the most important concepts. Okay, so just pay attention for this. Even if you haven't understood heteroscedasticity, that's fine because it is not used, and the most of the models which you find for a linear regression is, so they are not heteroscedastic. Okay, because linear regression is one of the basic models. Okay, so now let us assume that, so what is underfitting and what is overfitting? I won't tell you the theoretical definitions of this particular concept. I'll directly show it to you, because some things in machine learning are not theoretical. Either you have to practically implement it on pen, on your code, or else you have to do it on pen and paper. Okay, so I'll just directly show it to you what is underfitting. I'll just consider two scenarios. Okay, one part will be what is underfitting and what is overfitting. Okay, so I'm dividing this into two equal halves. Okay, so this is for underfitting. I call it as UF, and this is for overfitting, which I call it as OF. Okay, so what is actually underfitting? Okay, I'll tell you the simplest definition. Okay, there are tons of videos which are available on YouTube, and they have tons of theory, but I'll just explain it to you in simple words. So can somebody tell me what is the best fit line? I just want one line definition of best fit line, and you guys can tell me what is underfitting and what is overfitting. I'll make sure that you guys tell me. Okay, just tell me a simple definition of what is best fit line. Okay, Ishan raises his hand. Ishan, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe the best fit line is a line which gives you the minimum distance from all the points combined. So the R square value for that line will be the maximum.
Excellent, Ishan. It gives us the best fit line. The best fit line is the minimal distances from all the points. Exactly, perfectly correct. Okay, so let us consider this is our graph, and these are the points. Okay, so I am making such a graph which is like this. I'll use the same graph over here. Same graph or maybe a bit different. Okay, let's not take this. This is a pretty tough graph. Okay, let's take a simpler one. Uh, it's like this. Okay, and this is another graph. Okay, so these are the data points. Okay, so in this case, how can I draw the best fit line? Simple. This is my best fit line. These are the distances. What in this case, what's my best fit line? This. Can you see something over here? It's a straight line actually. I am not able to draw it because I'm using a mouse. Just assume it this is a straight line, and the distances of the points are very, what you can say, 0.001%. Okay, it's minimal. It's very minimal. You can assume that those all the points which you have plotted are on the line. Just assume that there will be a point one or maybe more than that gap between it, but just assume that it is on the line. Okay, it is on the line or it's almost touching the line. Okay, so this condition is called as underfitting, and this condition is called as overfitting. What do you mean by underfitting? Okay, if your best fit line is not able to cover all the points, or you can say that the distances from the points is not coming to be minimal, or all your points are not covered. Can you see it? I can't if there is a point here, I can't say that this is the best fit line for this particular point. because the distance is quite large. Okay, so that's why for a point somewhere over here, okay, I can say that this is not the best fit line. Why? Because the distance is very large. This is not the best fit line. So in these cases, where for some points we can't say that the best fit line is the best fit line, in that cases we call it as underfitting. So indirectly, what you can say that in case of underfitting, your best fit line doesn't cover all the points. Some points are left out. That means the particular model is underfit. It comes under underfitting. Now, what's the opposite of underfitting? It's overfitting. In underfitting, all your points are not covered. But what happens in overfitting? All your points are covered. Can you see it? That means you are getting a very good output, an excellent output. That's called as overfitting. Okay, these are very simpler terms. Underfitting means all your points are not covered by the best fit line. Overfitting is each and every point is covered with the best fit line. That's all. They both are opposites of each other. So this is the basic and the most simplest definition of underfitting and overfitting. So tell me guys, do you guys understood? Is it understood or should I explain it once again?
Understood.
Understood. Perfect. 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 Okay,
Actually, I'd
so
like to ask, like, how is overfitting a bad thing if your best fit line covers all the models? Isn't that the whole point?
then why do you need the model? Your best fit line is covering all the points. Then why do you need the model? So you can say that it's a straight line, but that may not be the case, right? For example, let me tell you. Okay, this is your best fit line. It is covering all the points. Okay, for a certain. Okay, let us just assume that I'll draw another graph over here. I'll draw this graph. This is a straight line. Try to draw very straight line. Okay, this is all the points which is covering. Okay, these are on the line, but let us assume your boss is telling you to predict the value for a particular point, the value of the dependent variable, and the x values is given as this 30. So now tell me, is this particular point lying on the best fit line, which you have to which you have to find out? Is it?
No.
No. Then how is overfitting helpful for you? You cannot predict this particular line. You cannot predict it. For these particular range, for this particular range, where all your points are fitting on the line, yes, definitely you can do it. But what if you have to predict you have to predict a point which is far away from the best fit line? So overfitting doesn't work in that case, right? Right. And even if your like what if a model is underfitting, then also it is not the distance from this particular point is not minimal, then also it's not good. Overfitting is also not good, right? So what's the best case? The best case is, okay, if your boss is telling you to find this particular point, the distance from the best fit line should be minimal. In this case the distance is higher, in this case also the distance is higher. Okay, so that shouldn't be the case. Always remember, in machine learning, the best case is when your condition is minimal. When the distances are minimal in linear regression, that's the best case for you and that's the best fit line. Is it understood, Akash?
Yeah, it's understood. I was just wondering that in overfitting, the distance is minimum, right? But it because the
Exactly.
points are all on the line. So I was confused as that's the whole point of doing it.
Yes, and that's okay. That's okay. So now I guess this more than clear, and it's around 6:25. Sorry, 7:25. I guess I've taken 10 minutes of Smith Kumar. Smith, I'm very sorry for that. Hello, Smith, are you here?
Yes, Tushar, no issues. I'm here.
Okay, then. So I guess linear regression is pretty much clear to all of you. So should I repeat any point again? Okay, Ishan is showing me a thumbs up. So can all of you just show me a thumbs up that yes, sir, it's clear? Okay, clear. I can see three thumbs up. What about others? There are 15 people in the meeting. Okay, Abir. That's great. That's great. And actually, it's a great thing. I have seen all you guys. You guys have joined since day one, and then also like you're continuing it till day five. So it's a very good thing, and it keeps us motivating. So thank you very much for joining. And now Smith will continue with the coding part. So be ready with your collab notebooks, and let's start coding.
Are you ready, guys? Everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, I'm ready.
All right. So, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Just a moment. Is my screen visible now?
I don't. Yes, it's
It's loading.
loading. Just a minute.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, great. So, it's been 2 days. We are on the weekends. We were on the weekends, and now we are again coming back to the pandas. We started pandas on Friday, and we seen series the this type of data structures, right? Did you remember all that? And all right. And I think if you have already remember all these things, we have created series, we have created lists, some, and we were trying to make data frames. And due to some bad internet issues, we were not able to do that. So today we will do that. All right. Are you all guys ready with your collapse? Just put a thumbs up. So great. So now we will first see how we can make a data frame from list. We have data. We have data. Let's see. We have names. We have salaries. Okay, and let's assume these are correlated. Like this is my Smith salary. This is Tushar salary. This is Akash salary. Okay. So now we want this list of values into a tabular form. So how we can do that? We can use data frame. Yeah. Now, one thing to remember about data frames is that it has indexes, as we have remembered, it has columns, and it has data. Okay, it has three components. Now, here, these values are of data. Like these are not our column names. Okay, these are our values for columns. Okay, so in pandas, we have data frames, which are simply tabular form structure of data. So we can make data frame. Just remember this capital letters, and this is simple function to create a data frame. PD dot data frame. We remember PD stands for pandas nomenclature. Now inside this function, we have to give some things to do it. As we have discussed earlier, these are functions, so it requires something to do. Okay, so we will provide it. Like we want to make a data frame, but on what? Like for what values do you want to make a data frame? Or for what structure do you want to make a data frame? So the best way of creating data frame is through lists. As we have seen, lists contain keys and values. So keys are understood as column names and values are understood as the values of columns. All right. So we will give a list, sorry, a dictionary to the data frame, and inside that dictionary we will give column names and values. So first column we want is name, and corresponding values for that column should be all these values inside this variable. Okay. So we will just simply pass that variable name. Okay, so what it will do is, these are key, this is our key, this is our values. Okay, so it will give this key value as a column name and this values as a column values. And we need another column as well for salary, so we can similarly give column name, salary, and corresponding values as salary variable, because all the salaries are stored into this variable. Remember, this salary words and name word are the name of variables which we have, where we have stored all the values. Okay, so let's see. It will create a data frame and it will show us the data frame. Okay, so here we have columns, name column and salary column, and here these are the index 0, 1, 2. By default, these are numerical values, but we can set index by default index. We can change them and we can give according to our requirements. Okay, so before moving on, like this is how we can create data frame by ourselves. If we have row values, like if we have stored some values in some variable, or if we have some function which have made a list of values. Okay, but in most of the cases, what we are dealing with when doing a ML project or something, the values have been collected through other processes, like through sensors and some automation tools. So we will now look in those tools and how those values are collected. But if we have all these values like this table, then how we can use those values and those tables and manipulate the data to gain some insights, to gain some knowledge through the data. Okay, the best thing about this pandas is it gives knowledge out of data, because without knowledge, the data is useless, right? So we should know that how to make value out of the data. So we will do some operations on data. We will see different kind of functions and what are the facilities that data frame in pandas provide us. So this is basically how we create data frame from list or using dictionary. The best way is from dictionary. So now we will use a predefined table. Like here we have made a small table, but for other operations we will do, we will need more data. So we can like kind of understand that how all those things are important. Like for that, this Colab has already containing some data sets for us. Can you see this file icon? Can you see my cursor? So when you click on that, it shows some sample data. If you can see, you can also see in your computers, it will be same for all because it is by default, and Colab provides this data. You can click on that and you can see several data in several files, CSV files. CSV files are comma separated values. Okay, so we will grab one of them, but we cannot directly grab and use them. We need to follow some rules, like not rules, but some kind of way from which this Colab or this code can get those files. Okay, so we will see how to read a file, how to read a CSV file. We have stored CSV file inside that inside this folder. We will see how we can retrieve that file. Okay, so if you have like any background, not background, but if you have worked with terminal, or in case command prompt or command interface, so you might be knowing that there are some commands which are helpful to interact with computer, because as we know that Colab Lab is a notebook is basically a program running on another computer in cloud, and we can use that computer using this interface. Okay, so there are some commands like pwd, which stands for present working directory. So what it does is it tells us that where are we on the computer, on that computer which we are using for this Colab. You might not see this, but you will see that you are in the content. Okay, so just a moment. You can tell, you can unmute yourself and tell what you see when you write PWD. Okay, PWD stands for present working directory inside the computer. So once you are in this directory, you might be looking it should be showing this that you are in the content. Then what you can do is you can change directory by CD. CD stands for change directory, and you can before that you can just list out what all it is containing and then run that shell. Okay, so you will see that there is sample data set which we can see in this folder. Okay, so now what you have to do is change directory into sample data, and you have to grab one of the files present tab. Okay, so again we will use list to know what are all things are there, and here we can see all these files. We can see the file names. So we know that now wherever we are now on the computer, we can see it by PWD, present working directory, and now we know that in this directory there is a file which we want. Okay, so this is our present directory. So basically what we want is we want pandas to read CSV file for us. Okay, CSV, and by this function it will do it for us. But what was the purpose of doing all these things is we were not where the files were located, right? We were not there. So if we have any file on our computer, and if you are using any other editor, then what you can do is you can just give it the path of file and also just the name of file. If this file and the required file are both on the same folder. So just forget about that. It might be a little confusing right now, but what you have to do is you just have to do pd.read CSV, and then inside that you have to pass a string. Then this string will consist of this address, the present working directory, that address of the directory. Okay, so what you have to do is pd.read CSV and then this address, content / sample data, and we know that these files are there inside this directory, so we will grab one of that file by providing the name of that file. California housing, we will use train. Okay, housing train .csv. So what it will do is pandas will look out for this path and grab this file, California housing train CSV. Okay, so let's see. It will show us what the file is containing. When you run this, you will see that this table format, it is already stored. How and these values came, that's a different whole point. This comes under data gathering and data processing and all. So we have these files. Okay, and we have chosen this file and it contains this data. So there are, as you can see, there are 17,000 rows and 9 columns. Okay, so we will do different operations on this table and see what pandas is capable of and what type of functionality it provides us. Okay, so first of all, starting from, we have done read CSV, then writing we will see later, and yeah, we can see selection part now. Okay, so here we just read the CSV file. Now we also need to store it because we want it to use this file again and again. Okay, so just what we will do is we can use a data variable and store this file inside that, or we can also use just df, data frame. All right, so now after running again, the CSV file will be stored in DF. So we can refer that CSV file by using DF. Okay, so let's see DF. Same thing it will show, and you can see now. Let's start with some basic functions. Okay, so we have first df dot head, then round braces. So what it does is it brings out the five rows, the first five rows. We can also give some number here like 3. By default, this head method or head function will return 5 rows by default. But if we provide any number, then it will return that number of rows. That's it, head 3. Then it returns 3 rows, 0, 1, 2. Then similarly, there is df tail. It is same as head. It returns from the ending, the last 5 ones by default, and if we provide any number, it will retrieve that amount of rows. Okay. Then we have slicing. Okay. Slicing. Let's do this. That slicing. Before that, moving on. If we want to select any one column, like let's see, total rooms. We can select total rooms. Okay. So how we can retrieve that? Df dot not dot df, then square bracket and name of that column. Here we have total rooms. Okay, so what it will retrieve is this column with the index values. Okay, this is index values column, and this is the column, all the values inside this column. Okay, so now this is just for simplicity, that instead of performing this slicing operation, we will first perform slicing operation on this single column, and then we can basically use those slicing operations on whole table as well. Okay, so just for simplicity, we will use these operations on small. You can consider it as a small data frame. All right. So let's see df column total rooms. Okay. Now what we want is from this column we only need from, as we seen, head brings us first 5 and tail brings us last 5. So if you want something from between, like if you want rows from between, from any number to any number. Okay, so what we can do is we can use iloc method. What iloc does is it retrieves specified rows using locations. Like here I stands for index location. So what we want is from index location, it starts from 0, remember. So if you want from 10 to 15, so what we can do is 10, and remember for 15 we use +1 because it is exclusive. So what we get is 10 to 15 rows. Okay, so basically if you want any rows from between the table, so we can use this method, and what it does is it just slices out that piece of information, that number of rows from the table. Okay, so we have done this, and with that, if you want first if you do not write any number here, so what it will do is I think we didn't cover this, or I don't remember. Okay, so let's see. If we pass like this, then 16, if we do not pass this first value, then what it will do is it will consider from starting to the 16th index, and 16 is exclusive, so it will retrieve till 15. Okay, so we can also try that here as well. And you can see from starting to 16, and if we do not specify the ending, then it will consider till end. Like here there were 17,000. Okay, so I will give some similar value, 16,090. Okay, so okay, so basically what it will do is from this index, from given index till end, it will consider all the rows. Okay, so this was the concept of slicing which we can apply on this. So let's keep it 10 till 16. Okay. And then what we have next is we have seen slicing. Slicing and index I location is basically the similar concept, like used together. And similarly, as we have done this on single column, we have selected single column by specifying the name of column inside the square bracket. But if we want the whole table, and if you want to slice the slice whole table and retrieve some rows from between, then we can use directly a df.ilog, like the same function on whole table. Okay, let's see 10 till 16. Now, excuse me. Okay, all right. So here we can see it does the same slicing operation on whole table instead of only single columns. So now you might you might be knowing that if you want any columns, then we can just give the name of that column inside square bracket. Okay. So here we go. Latitude. Let's consider latitude. Okay. So we can get latitude, and if we want multiple columns, all these operations are same, but just in case we want to perform it on multiple columns, then what we have to do is we have to pass here, as we have passed only one name, right? Name of single column. So here now what we have to do is we have to pass a list of columns. Okay. So let's see one thing before doing that. Let's see. This is columns. Okay. Columns equals. This is the list of columns. Yeah. So longitude and latitude. Okay. So now what we are having here is a list of columns. Okay. This is just for simplicity, like to understand what is happening there. So now what we can do is you can use df, and then instead of naming, specifying a name, we can pass this list. What it will do is it will just consider all this list, all these column names inside that list. Okay. So it will only show that these columns, and these different functions can be combined. Like we can also use iloc here as well. So these are this all operations can be used in combinations as well. So you can try out different combinations. We will see now. We will see like we'll more focus on different operations to understand all the different functions. Okay. So here you can see it considers all these column names, and we can directly also specify a list here instead of using a new variable. Like here we can use any column name, like column 1. If we just remember, we have to supply the names which are in the table. For an example, I use column 1, column 2. We can you can consider like longitude and latitude. Okay, so we can directly give a list here as well. Then moving on to the next functions. Let's keep it as it is, column. And now we have short values. Okay, so what it does is like by name we can understand it shorts the values. And let's see how we want to short the values. Let's consider total rooms again. Okay, so we have 17,000 values, 17,000 rows, and now we want all these rows to be in sorted order according to this column total rooms. Okay. So how we can do that? We can use sort values like df. Remember, we have stored the table inside df dot sort values, and we can pass the according to what do we have according to what we want this table to be sorted. So we can supply that column name. Remember, we have to pass the column name in quotations. So that's we have considered total rooms, right? Okay, total rooms. So it will sort all the rows according to the values stored in total room column. Now we can see that it starts in ascending by default to 8 in ascending order. You can see this index. Now it are now shuffled, and we can also sort values in descending order as well by supplying ascending equals false. So what we have to do is just pass another value like ascending equals false. So it will sort in this descending order. Okay. Then moving further, we have informations criteria. So we can get a lot of information from tables. So here we can see that it contains 17,000 and rows and 9 columns. But okay, we can know this thing if it is not shown here by shape. Okay, so we have df dot shape. So we can know what is the shape of the table, like how many rows and columns. Then you can see it returns the value in tuple form. Okay. Then we have index df dot index. It shows us all the index. What are the values in index? Okay. Index starts from 0, stops at 17,000, and changes at 1 step. Like as we can know, we have seen that like starting point, last value, and step size. Step size is nothing but a difference between two consecutive indexes. Okay, then we can know what are the columns are there inside our table. Just a moment. We can know the columns. All right. Then we have info, which gives us values like overall info about the table. Let's see. We can see like these are the column values. Inside that column, there are 17,000 values which are not null. Okay, so not null means no rows, like none of the column have empty shell or empty boxes. Okay, inside table. So all the values are filled. This is because the data set is already data, what we can say, it is already prepared data set. Okay, so all these requirements are been fulfilled already. We will see still that how we can fill those values or remove those rows if the values are not there or which are not valuable to us. Okay, then we can use count to count how many rows are there. It's like 53. Okay, so we can see how many values are there inside the columns, different columns, and then we have summary, like overall summary of the table. So let's see to get summary of the table. What we can do, we can perform this task on whole table if all the values are numerical. As in our case, I think it's all numerical data. we can perform summarization, like sum of all the values. It will return some according to the columns, and or we can also perform this operations on particular column by specifying df and column name. All right, inside this. But now we will do on whole table. Okay, on whole table data frame dot sum. And if you guys have any doubt in between, like if you didn't understand, it's like quite easy. You just have to remember, not even remember. There are lots of what we say cheat sheets out there which we can refer, and you do not need to remember all those things, but just have to see what type of functionality is there which we can use, and it is also quite easier to remember all this as well, because these are like very simple stuff. And here you can see these are in the scientific notation, because the values are quite large, 17,000 values. And let's see other stuff. If you want a minimum or maximum values in any column, remember we can use this operation interchangeably. Like we can use any kind of combinations. Like you can perform it on column, you can perform then sum, or if you perform first sum and then pass it to the you can also consider it as a data frame and perform another task on that. Like these are two column rows, and you can find value of population and all. So these concepts are what we can say applied in any combinations. Okay, so let's see minimum values. So minimum, and similarly there is max function as well. As you can see, minimum values of all those functions. And df dot let's see what is the minimum number of rows or minimum population. Okay, population, and then apply minimum function. It should, yeah, you can see G3. Okay, then moving on, we can use describe method to describe the data frame. Df dot describe. It will give all the statistical information. Then you can see like it shows the count, mean value, mean of columns. Okay, this is all values according to columns. So in longitude, this is the count, this is mean, standard deviation, then minimum value 25%. These are distribution. If you haven't learned any kind of distribution in probability, it's just you can ignore this now. Then maximum value, this is 50% is median. Then you can also retrieve mean and median using mean median functions. Mean, then median. Okay, these values are quite useful when we don't have, like we have empty shells in the table and we have to fill. Like, if there are empty shells, then we can either remove those rows if we have lots of other data, and if we are short of data, then we can also like fill those values using mean or median values. Okay, so it doesn't change anything, and just fills the empty rows. Then missing values. Here, as we have discussed, like while data processing, if there are any missing values in tables, here in this case there are no missing values. But if there are any missing values, then as I mentioned, like there can be two cases. One case is we are having a lot of data. Then if there is some missing values, then we directly do not consider whole that example or whole row. We can disregard whole that row. Okay, all the values of that row, and we can just remove that row. But if we are falling short of data and we cannot remove the row, and we want to like manage the missing values, then we can fill those null values using this function. Let's see, like in this example, if there are no empty values, so none it wouldn't affect, but we can use drop null and a drop na, and what this thing will do is if there is any empty shell in any column, then it will just disregard whole row. Okay, so in this case there are no empty shells, so it doesn't affect. And we can see an example on, we will do it later. Okay, and what happened, similarly we have df dot fill null, and we can pass any value. So here we pass value, and this value can be mean, median, according to ourselves. If we want to pass any any specific value, then we can do it. Like if there is any missing values, then it will fill that value by 5. So it wouldn't change because there are no empty shells. And at last we have different bunch of other methods as well. df.drop. If we want, if we see that there are some useless columns, like okay, in this data set, I don't think there would be, but let's consider, let's just consider the household is useless. Okay, this household is useless, and if it is useless or not, we can judge by our intuitions. And if you want to remove this column, the whole column, what we can do is we can use drop function. Okay, so df dot drop and specify column name. Column. If you want to delete multiple columns, then we can also use columns equals to, and then we can pass a list of columns which we want to delete. Okay, drop means delete. Doesn't make difference. There would be some difference which we will discuss. Households. Okay, we can just pass households. Okay, I think we need to pass columns as well. Okay, columns equals hello, am I audible? I think
Yes.
okay, all right. So here we can see that after just a minute, verify. Here we can see after population there is a column name household, and here after population there is no household, so the column is removed. But here there is another concept in data frame that we will discuss. Now you can see there is no column named households. It is removed, but not totally removed. We will see what happened here. If we print df our data frame, then we can see this household still is there. Okay, but in this case, when we run this drop function, it is not showing us after population. It is directly median income. Okay, so what just happened here? Does anyone know, or someone would like to guess here what is happening here? This is
I think it's making a copy of the database.
I cannot hear. Just a moment. Now I was speaking.
Yeah, I am Akash here, and I think it's like when we apply the drop function, it is returning a copy of the actual database and not actually manipulating the database.
Correct. Absolutely correct. So you might have seen that in some cases the data frame is not showing, or in most of the cases when we write any command, the data frame is written. Right? We can see data frame. We haven't print data frame, or we haven't said explicitly that df. Okay. So what happens is when we write this command, it returns a copy of data frame. This is a copy of data frame, and it automatically shows us, like prints us as an output. So here we want, if you want to see, we have write df. Okay. So here it returns the copy. So what happens is each time it returns a copy. So as I mentioned that we can use multiple combination of operations. So what happens there is the first one operation is performed first, and then on that after executing the first operation, what happens is it returns the copy of data frame. Okay, then that copy of data frame is executed by the next operation. Like when we combine two operations together, like in slicing, we have seen, like we have used column. Okay, so at those times, like here we can see this df dot population will return a column of population. Okay, and then we will apply me. So it will then apply me. Like first it will retrieve column which will show us single column of population, and then on that data frame, on that copy of data frame, it will apply me. So it is basically simpler for the computer to compute. Okay, and this thing we have to remember that it does not change actual data frames. Okay, these are just showing us the copy of data frame. As we have seen here, it is not changing the actual data frame. This is our actual data frame df. So, but if we want to delete an actual column from data set, like we want to remove this column from our data set, okay, then what we can do is we can pass an argument here, like data frame dot drop household, it was household. Okay, households, and then by separating comma we can pass another parameter. These are all parameters which we pass here, and we can pass another parameter inline. Okay, and equals true. Okay. So what it will do is it will actually change or alter the data which is there. Okay. Inline. Okay, it's not inline, it's in place. Okay, in place, it does mean that it actually changes the value of data. Households not found nexus. All right. Again, when we want to like tell that remove this data frame, we also have to specify that where to find these households. So here I think they have, I'm just guessing that they have increased parameters. So by accidentally no one deletes the data axis1. What it means is axis1 is x-axis, right? X is 1 and y is second. Okay, so what it will do is it will search for columns in the columns, this value in the columns. Okay, after applying axis1, it will remove it didn't see, it didn't show us any data frame when we run it. Okay, it just doesn't work. It doesn't return any data frame. So here it returns the data frame. So when it doesn't return data frame, we cannot perform any chaining operations. That combination of operations together is called chaining operations. So one by one, the performance operations will happen, and it will consider the output of previous operation. Okay, so here it doesn't change, and now if we see data frame, then it would the households would not be there because it actually removed the data. Okay, so we can see population and then median income. Okay, so it actually removed the data. It actually removed that column which we specified. Okay. So now what we have is rename. If we want to rename any column, okay, let's consider if you want to change that housing median age, okay, housing median age to just median age. Okay, so how we can do is we can use rename function, df dot rename column equals. Now you can you have to remember that when we as you might remember that we passed in previous example we passed a key value pair. Remember, we passed a list of a dictionary to specify keys as column names and values as table values. Okay, so here we have to follow this syntax. So just remember that for rename we can use columns by key value pair. Right, we have to specify a previous column so it can find like where is the previous column, housing median age. Okay. So we have to specify that previous name, housing median age, and then in place of values we have to specify new name of the column. Okay, we will just give it median age. And we will again see that does it really change anything or it just shows us that. Okay, here it shows where it is median age. Now the name is changed, right? But let's see if it actually changes the name of column or just it shows us a copy. Okay, so let's see again. If it's 1010 and yeah, we have this much only for today. Like we just are having short values and value counts. Quickly we will see two functions and we will end today's session. All right. So here you can see the housing median age. Okay. So this does mean that this rename function is not changing anything. It's just returning a copy of data frame. Okay. So quickly let's see the remaining two operations. Here short values. All right. And we have to pass one thing. I think we have already seen this. Short values by column name. Just population, we can say population, and then we have value counts. It is sorted now according to population. As we mentioned that we can perform these operations on whole table or any single column as well. Then df dot value counts. Sorry. Then it will count the all the values. Okay. Like how many different values are there. So as you can see, these are the different values. What it does is actually it counts this differences, like how many similar values are occurring there. Okay. So just for today, I think it's pretty much that's it. And I think if you understood all these operations, these basic operations, then you are good to go with higher learning. Like there are lots of different functions and you can learn them. There are many functions. Okay, so you can learn them online or seeing any tutorial, or you can also start with your own database, or if you have any Excel sheet and you want to perform this task, this can be done. Okay, so I think for today that's it. If you have any doubt, then please ask now, or else we are finished with our today's session. If you have any doubt, you can unmute yourself and ask. Okay, so I think there is no doubts. If everyone are clear, just put a thumbs up, and so we can get a confirmation, and we can end this session. All right, Tushar, would you like to tell anything, or I'm done from my side?
I'm not able to hear you properly. Did you say something?
Hello, come again, please. I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, I was not able to hear you either.
Okay, I was telling that if you guys are clear with today's functions, then you are pretty much ready to perform advanced operations on data frame. And I think for machine learning point of view, these are very basic functions, and these are actually when you use already what you can say already processed data frames, which are you don't need any preparation for data set. It has data sets. I'm sorry. Most of the data sets are already available on Kaggle platforms, right? So those all data sets are already pre-processed. Okay, so you don't have to spend your time on processing all the data, because it like 90% of the whole machine learning engineer people spends their time on data processing and cleaning and all. Okay, so when you want to build a machine learning model, or any when you are working on any machine learning project, what you will do is there are lots of data sets available for almost everything, and you can just use those data sets, and to understand all those data sets, these operations we perform today are enough. And if you want to learn more, you can definitely try out stuff by yourself and through internet. I will also share a cheat sheet with you for this pandas library. And and I was telling that if you have any doubt today in today's session, then you can unmute yourself and ask. And if you don't have any doubts, then put a hands up and you can leave.
Guys, I guess we are done for the day. It's been around 2 hours, approximately 2 hours. Okay, Raj, you have a doubt? Daksh has a doubt. Yes, Daksh, go ahead.
No, he told us to raise our hands if we don't have doubts.
Just put a thumbs up and you are free to leave.
Okay then. Okay, I'm getting a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay then, perfect. Bye
Welcome
then.
everyone. Welcome Akash.
Bye guys. Have a great day.